Hi everyone, my name is Avram K and you're watching Alfei Panim Parshas Behar Bechukosai 2025. In Parshas Bechukosai, the Torah describes the great bracha, the great blessing that will be given to those who follow the Torah. There will be rain in the proper season, and the land and the trees will yield their produce. And the Medrash notes there will be a bracha in the food itself, that just a small amount will be satisfying. In Parshas Behar, the Torah describes a very different bracha for those who observe Shemitah, the sabbatical year. V'chi saimru ma neichal b'shana hashviyas. If you say, what will we eat in the seventh year? We're not going to sow or gather in our produce. Hashem says, then I will command my blessing on you in the sixth year, and it shall bring forth fruit for 3 years. That is the year before Shemitah, the year of Shemitah itself, and also the year following Shemitah. This is a very, very different bracha. It is a blessing, a bracha of plenty, even overabundance. The Sefer Moshe U'Melitza points out the stark difference between these two brachas, and that difference invites questions. By Shemitah, when the people ask, what will we eat? Why does Hashem not give the answer from Bechukosai, that just a small amount of food will satisfy them? And conversely, in Parshas Bechukosai, why is the bracha limited to being satisfied with only a little? Why would Hashem not give the tremendous abundance of the bracha in Parshas Behar? In a way, one could call this lahavdil a tale of two brachas. From here, the Mashal U'Melitza embarks on a discussion of society that, if possible, is even more relevant now than when it was written over 100 years ago. He writes that before answering the questions about the two different brachas, we need to take into account the current human condition. The world of the 1920s, he says, is consumed by a hunger, the likes of which has never before been seen in the world. Famines of the past, however difficult, were at least straightforward. Insufficient rainfall or pestilence or blight led to crop failures, which led to shortages of food, which led to hunger. But the hunger in our, meaning his time, the Mashal U'Melitza, is very different. Rather than a simple hunger for basic sustenance, there is an all-consuming, desperate desire for something more. And its cause is a mind-boggling overabundance of material goods. In the 1920s, the roaring 20s, when the Mashal U'Melitza was written, the world was yet at the beginning of this phenomena. In the aftermath of World War I, the United States and the Allied powers saw tremendous economic growth. Technology was beginning to develop at dizzying speed. It seemed like new machines and inventions were coming out every month. It was the best of times, it was the worst of times. It was the age of wisdom, it was the age of foolishness. It was the epoch of belief. It was the epoch of incredulity. These are the words of Mr. Charles Dickens. In a very real sense, we see that these words were manifest in the 20th century in a whole new way. A world awash in plenty, yet full of people who are unsatisfied and unhappy. The Mashal U'Melitza asks an insightful question: why nowadays, meaning in his days, does the world not have great minds like those of the past? Why do we not have philosophers like they had in ancient Greece, writers like Shakespeare, painters like Michelangelo, great diplomats like Disraeli or Bismarck? His answer is very sobering. In previous times, mankind was striving to lift itself out of primitivism and poverty. In a world largely devoid of any kind of advanced technology, man lived by what he could produce with his hands. Most of the world was sunk in abject poverty and lived with only the barest of necessities. Even the rich and powerful lived in squalor compared to how average people live today. The bleakness of the human condition pushed people to aspire to something greater, and that pressure to advance helped produce great thinkers. And then came the Industrial Revolution. Beginning in Europe in the 1700s, it migrated across the sea to the United States. By the mid-1800s, it was well on its way here as well. But technological advancement really took off in the early 1900s. The introduction of the assembly line by Henry Ford in 1908 ushered in the age of mass production, converting the work ethic into the consumption ethic. By the 1920s, radio and air travel had fundamentally changed the world. In the face of growing economic prosperity, mankind was no longer focused on the great advancement of humanity. People were now mainly concerned with acquiring more stuff. The mystics tell us that mankind in general, and Klal Yisrael in particular, were placed on earth to elevate the coarse and mundane substance, the chomer of the world, into tzura, the substance of the spirit. The Mashal Malitza says that the world is so far in the grip of materialism that rather than transform chomer into tzura, we are doing just the opposite. Our overwhelming drive towards money and possessions, asking effectively, what shall we eat, is changing things that may have once had tzura, spiritual qualities, back into simple chomer. And if this was the case in the 1920s, at the beginning of the modern age, how much more so is this true today? The Torah promises that if we keep it as we are supposed to, then Hashem will provide us with what we need to sustain ourselves. We will eat and be satisfied in moderation. Even more, if we truly live in accord with the Torah, we will find that we actually need and want less. But if our focus is only on what shall we eat, then even when we are awash in plenty, we will tragically never be satisfied. A powerful lesson for our times. Have a wonderful Shabbos. My name is Avram K., and you're watching Alfei Panim.